Welcome back, viewers, to the latest researches and news. Viewers, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed gave the interview against the Tigray People's Liberation Front through the Oromia Broadcasting Network. Not a press release, not a parliamentary statement, a sit-down interview, carefully chosen words, a specific audience, a specific moment. We also want your comments on this statement from Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in comment section. Today we do not just tell you what he said. We ask why he said it now, and what the Tigray People's Liberation Front's actual record looks like against each of his claims. Let us start with Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's exact points. He made 4 core arguments. First, the Tigray People's Liberation Front has become a tool of foreign enemies' external actors who want to weaken Ethiopia and use the Tigray People's Liberation Front as an instrument for that purpose. Second, the Tigray People's Liberation Front is operating on political ideology that belongs to the 1990s, that it has failed to evolve and is stuck in a way of thinking that is no longer relevant to contemporary Ethiopia. Third, the Tigray People's Liberation Front has openly violated the Pretoria Peace Agreement, the deal signed in November 2022 that was supposed to end the Tigray War and establish a path toward reconciliation. Fourth, the Ethiopian public today is politically aware enough that the kind of tactics the Tigray People's Liberation Front used in the 1990s, which he characterized as exclusionary, would no longer succeed. These are his 4 arguments. Now let us go through each one seriously. But first, let us understand the timing. Because in political analysis, when a statement is made, is often as important as what the statement says. Look at what happened in the 7 days before Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's interview. On August 1st, heavy fighting erupted on the Shererina front in western Tigray between the Tigray Defense Forces and the Ethiopian National Defense Force. Both sides took casualties. The Ethiopian government did not issue an official comprehensive statement on what happened. On August 3rd, senior Eritrean military commanders crossed into Ethiopian territory at Zalambesa, publicly entering the town and raising Eritrean flags. Ethiopia described this as a direct violation of its sovereignty. On August 6th, reports confirmed that Eritrean tanks and heavy weapons were moving toward the areas of northern Ethiopia, where the Tigray People's Liberation Front has its strongest presence. On August 8th, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed gave this interview. 4 events over 7 days, each one increasing the pressure on the federal government, and then a carefully delivered media message. There is also a specific contrast worth noting. In July 2026, just weeks earlier, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed stood before Parliament and said, with notable confidence, that even if the Tigray People's Liberation Front, Eritrea, and Sudan were to combine against Ethiopia, it would not represent a serious threat. 1 month later, the language is completely different. The Tigray People's Liberation Front is now a tool of foreign enemies. That is not a gradual shift in rhetoric. That is a significant change in tone over a very short period of time. In political communication, when a leader escalates their language sharply after a series of adverse developments on the ground, that escalation is a reaction, not a position of confidence. It is a response to events that have gone differently than anticipated. Now let us go through each of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's 4 claims. Claim 1. The Tigray People's Liberation Front is a tool of foreign enemies. The unnamed foreign enemies in Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's language are understood by everyone listening to refer to Eritrea and potentially Egypt. We have covered the Simido alliance in detail in previous videos. The strategic alignment between the Tigray People's Liberation Front and Eritrea's government is real and documented. But here is the question this framing avoids. Why did the Tigray People's Liberation Front and Eritrea draw closer? After the Pretoria Agreement was signed in 2022, the Ethiopian federal government maintained economic pressure on Tigray. Fuel supply restrictions continued. Salary payments to civil servants in Tigray were delayed. Humanitarian aid faced ongoing bureaucratic obstruction. And critically, the Ethiopian federal government extended the mandate of the Tigray Interim Regional Administration unilaterally in April 2026. Without consultation with the Tigray People's Liberation Front, even though the Tigray People's Liberation Front had previously agreed to that administration's existence. When one side in a peace agreement continuously applies pressure on the other, restricting fuel, withholding salaries, making unilateral administrative decisions, the side under pressure will seek external support. That is not ideology. That is survival logic. Describing that search for support as becoming a foreign tool avoids the question of what drove the Tigray People's Liberation Front to seek external partnerships in the first place. Claim 2. The Tigray People's Liberation Front has outdated 1990s ideology. This is a politically convenient argument, but let us apply it honestly. Before 2018, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed himself was a senior member of the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, the ruling coalition that the Tigray People's Liberation Front led for nearly 30 years. He served in intelligence. He served in government. He was an insider in exactly the system he now calls outdated. Calling the Tigray People's Liberation Front's ideology outdated when you yourself were part of that structure until it benefited you to leave it is a selective use of history. The ideology critique is used as a political characterization, not as a serious examination of what the Tigray People's Liberation Front actually stands for in 2026. And on the substance, the Tigray People's Liberation Front's core demands are not ideological abstractions. They are concrete. The return of Western Tigray to Tigray administration, full implementation of constitutional self-governance for the region, and the implementation of the transitional justice process promised under Pretoria. These are not 1990s demands. They are 2026 demands arising from 2020-2022 realities. Claim 3. The Tigray People's Liberation Front violated the Pretoria Agreement. This is the claim with the most shared ground between the two sides and also the most selective framing. Yes, the Tigray People's Liberation Front reinstated its regional government structure. Yes, the Tigray People's Liberation Front has been training and recruiting for the Tigray Defense Forces. Yes, the Tigray People's Liberation Front launched operations on the Shererina front. But the Pretoria Agreement was not violated by one side alone. The agreement called for the withdrawal of Eritrean forces from Tigray. Eritrean forces remained. It called for the withdrawal of Amhara forces from Western Tigray. That did not fully happen. It called for the return of displaced Tigrayans to Western Tigray. That did not happen. It called for transitional justice mechanisms. Those were not established. The federal government extended the Tigray Interim Regional Administration's mandate without the Tigray People's Liberation Front's agreement, a unilateral move that the Tigray People's Liberation Front described as the final breaking point. When a peace agreement is violated by both sides, pointing to only one side's violations as proof of bad faith is not an honest account of events. Claim 4. The Ethiopian public is too aware for the Tigray People's Liberation Front's tactics to work. This is the most interesting claim, because it is actually an implicit acknowledgement that the Tigray People's Liberation Front continues to have political relevance. If the Tigray People's Liberation Front were truly irrelevant and finished, there would be no need to reassure the public that it cannot succeed. Leaders who are confident in their position do not need to explain why the opposition will fail. They let the results speak. When a leader devotes a formal media interview to explaining why the opposition's tactics will not work, it suggests that those tactics are in fact generating concern. There is one more element worth noting because it reveals the coordination behind this messaging. Getachew Reda, the former Tigray People's Liberation Front figure who was expelled from the organization and now serves as an advisor in Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government, has been pushing almost identical narrative points to what Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said in this interview. At almost the same time, the same language, the same framing, the same characterizations of the Tigray People's Liberation Front as a foreign-backed, outdated group out of touch with its own people. When a prime minister and a former opposition figure turned government advisor are delivering the same message simultaneously through different channels and different audiences, that is a coordinated communications campaign. Not organic commentary, not independent assessments, a deliberate unified narrative being released at a specific moment. The coordination itself tells you something. The federal government has assessed that narrative management is a priority right now. And narrative management becomes a priority when the situation on the ground is generating messages that the government does not want to define the public understanding of events. Perhaps the most revealing analysis of any political statement is not what it says, but what it deliberately does not say. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's August 8th interview did not mention Western Tigray. The territory remains under Amhara administration. Over 1 million internally displaced Tigrayans cannot return to their homes there. The Pretoria Agreement called for this to be resolved. It was not mentioned. The interview did not address the economic conditions in Tigray, the ongoing restrictions on fuel supply, the delays in civil servant salaries, the humanitarian access limitations. None of this was addressed. If the federal government wants the Tigray People's Liberation Front to demonstrate its loyalty to the Tigray people rather than foreign actors, addressing the material conditions of those people would be a concrete way to compete for that loyalty. The interview did not propose any new political initiative for dialogue, no new framework, no new offer, no new process, just the characterization of the Tigray People's Liberation Front as irrelevant, foreign-backed, and ideologically finished. A statement that characterizes the opposition without offering an alternative path forward is not a peace move. It is a political attack delivered through media. Let us bring everything together. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed gave this interview on August 8th, 7 days after Shererina fighting, 5 days after Eritrean commanders entered Zalambesa, 2 days after reports of Eritrean tanks moving toward Tigray. He called the Tigray People's Liberation Front a tool of foreign enemies without acknowledging the federal government's own actions that drove the Tigray People's Liberation Front to seek external partners. He called the Tigray People's Liberation Front's ideology outdated while having himself been part of that same political structure. He accused the Tigray People's Liberation Front of violating Pretoria without acknowledging the federal government's own violations of the same agreement. And he reassured the public that the Tigray People's Liberation Front's tactics will fail in the same week that the Tigray People's Liberation Front was fighting the Ethiopian National Defense Force on one front, while Eritrean commanders were entering Ethiopian territory on another, and Fano was conducting its campaign for unity across Amhara simultaneously. The root causes of this conflict: Western Tigray's status, the Pretoria Agreement's full implementation, the economic conditions in Tigray, the political future of all of Ethiopia's peoples were not addressed. A statement does not resolve those causes. Only engagement with them does. Now we want to hear from you. After watching this analysis, do you think Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's August 8th statement reflects a position of strength? Or does the timing, the language change, and the things left unsaid suggest something different? Let us know in the comments. This conversation matters, and your perspective is part of it. Like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss an in-depth analysis like this one.